So as we begin, I thought we would look at the agenda and just get a sense. We're just going to look at the icebreaker, do a quick icebreaker. We're going to review the minutes and see if you have any questions. And then just give a very, very brief update regarding the visioning session. I know that we have a couple people unable to be here tonight, and maybe regroup a little bit based on that. But I'm really grateful that you are here. Brian and I are so happy to be here. So in a little bit, we're going to review the format that we're looking at. And then a good time tonight is spent in activity 5, which is all about looking at some data and seeing what priorities that it gives us. And I think that all of you got that data and are coming with a few ideas that we'll notate. And then I just, as Brian and I prepared, we think it's a really good idea, and Ron said I must have thought it was a good idea many years ago as well, to look at the future. Ron said when he was, can I tell the story?
Right.
When I was a brand new superintendent in about the year of 2000, I did an activity very similar to this, and it was jobs of the 2025. And now we're here, and I am really old. That's what that tells me. But I think it's good to look up, into the future and just see what are we preparing our students for, and just get our heads around that. It's so easy to get stuck in what we're doing right now and not think about, hey, our kindergartners are going to graduate. I believe the year is 2039. So what do we need to do
That's the right,
to really
that's the
think
right
about
expression,
that?
yeah.
So we're going to do a little bit of article discussion on that, and then go into the end and talk about next steps, which are exciting as we sit right now. So these are our norms, and I just think it's important to just review. We had a great meeting last time, and people are really respectful, and I appreciate that. And I thank you for being an ambassador. I know that some people came to visioning sessions and said, oh, someone told me to come, and so we really appreciate that. So thank you for being number 5. So take a look at the letter by your name, and get that letter in your head. We're going to do a quick, just a quick icebreaker, and you're going to be working in a lot of different groups so that you get to know people. But does anyone want to just review names real quickly? Just real fast. Do you want to just go?
Just name?
Yep.
Mary Lansky.
Dave Wagner.
Jordan Zersher.
Mary Jane Huber.
Ben Wildman.
Andy Petro.
Ron Rust.
Brian Dassick.
Ashley Burns.
Steve Newcomer.
Stacy Rice. Rebecca Hines.
Great. Right? I'm Joanne. So at the last meeting, we showed this, and I'd like for you to get together with the people that have your name, letter, and I'm going to look, these are in front of you, so you can take it with you. But I think it's just important to take a moment and look at these roles, and as you look at that, just have a very brief discussion. What's something that's clear, something that you like, something that you think is doable? That's A. And then most importantly, do you have a question based on the timeline or roles? And we're just going to do this real quickly. Someone, you don't even need to notate it, just get a question in your head that the group thought of in looking at this. So the goal is, in about 3.5 minutes, to just talk through what do you see on this page that you think is clear and seems workable in terms of our getting this job done, and what is a question that you have. And for the sake of this activity, if we go group A, just you can stand, because we'll be sitting a lot. Group A over here, B there, C there, and D over there. And again, real brief conversation, maybe 4 minutes.
How are you? All right.
Jordan, let's go.
You can do
Yes.
Their part is the first 2 columns are almost unaccepted. Online strategic planning survey. It started with 2, I think.
We're actually going to go through that. Yeah, it did get better as we went along. People were promoting it, and it helped. Yeah. We had
6:30 or something, so it worked out pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timeline's clear.
I guess I have purpose more about sort of thing I was
2 words for a whole lot of words, so.
That would be the question. And what?
That's a good one.
We have asked her for the process, and what?
I don't know, the page cut off.
Oh, no. I think it said for the process, the plan, and the district.
Pre-craft doesn't always use this, or like, based on some of the other stuff that we reviewed coming in tonight, there was areas, in my opinion, really strong in, and areas that we
So
were
it says
strong in.
that
I'm just curious, like, will that survey help dig into those areas that we are not as strong to like, really figure out
You know.
what is the issue with that? If we're saying communication, is it we're getting too much communication, too little communication through too many different like we talked about, is it, you know, website, Facebook, like, is it too many places to streamline?
Yeah, maybe that's why they
Curious
do
whether
that. Get 'em in
that,
there.
like, survey.
I think they've got to get a good idea of what, when, where,
Or is it just like, one they always just rent, when they do it?
the how.
Just as gabbing for 2 hours every other week, or how exactly is the rubber meter?
Right, absolutely.
It worked that back right there.
I didn't work on this one here.
It says and, or it says a process plan and
I didn't know that was happening.
probably, yeah.
Like, something where it's supposed to know, if it's a specific personnel issue, my hairdresser told me, that I was like, that means that staff member also was the same hairdresser and complained about the issue, and then you came in.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
afterwards and heard about it.
Well, she thought it looked fine when I gave it to her.
Yeah, but how does that
I
happen?
was dealing with a personnel issue and saying that saying that like that's not.
One more minute. She says with her voice cracking. One more minute.
Later on, like, that's not wrong, it's not the school board, that's not the consequence, that's not actually doing your job of knowing the other issues.
What would be like
Building the issues. That we spend a lot of time on, these are our.
We do have to make personal decisions. It's great when
each grade has a, you know, has their own building, in each building.
Let's start with your group. Let's just stay where you're at and use our outside voices. What was something that's clear and what's a question that you had?
We felt that the entire kind of timeline was very clear, like it gives any of the three of us very many questions.
Good. Timeline clear, good. Question?
We kind of were curious how we're gonna actually build the different pillars, and like when we do breakout groups, when we do it as a whole team, those were the things we talked about.
Yeah, and I think we'll do a little bit of both, quite frankly, because I think I don't think anyone should own a pillar. You know, like you're only going to do workforce, or you're only going to do, I think that it really benefits. So Brian and I will move you around, so we'll do a little bit of both. It's a good question. How about this group? Something that was clear.
We pointed out originally, yeah, the timeline is laid out very nice and clear. And
Good.
when
And a
things need to be
question?
completed. Question, we had a few questions.
Oh, good.
Well, Ben, you had with the review of the.
Yeah, there was some specific questions about the implementation and on the long term and how exactly that gets done. I guess it's after the plan, but clarity on that would be helpful.
Okay. We're not going to do that now, but I'll make sure that we notate that and make sure that we spend some time on that as we move forward. It's a good question, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? We can spend all these hours, and if it sits on a shelf, not good. Not good.
They got another question.
Yeah. Another question?
What if the board doesn't approve it? I know we have 2 members in here, but we spent a lot of time on this. It says it goes to board for approval and consideration. What happens if there's an issue there?
Well, I've had that happen, where we've come back to the drawing board. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen because it's our job to keep the board abreast of where we're at. So hopefully we don't get to the very end and then it's a big surprise. So I'm hopeful that that won't happen, and I'm confident, but I have had that happen. And then we worked for another 6 weeks and addressed what the concerns were and got it approved after the deadline.
So you push it through anyway, yes.
So, I mean, we made it, because we really listened to what the concerns were. But to me,
Okay.
it's better to be proactive and keep the board abreast so that it isn't a big surprise at the end. To that end, Ron, I'll talk with you about an update. This group,
I think we could say we don't really talk about this very much, but our positive is that similar, the timeline, and we've been sticking to what is said on here, and that's, just having this is very helpful.
good. Good. Question?
We talked about, well, two things, kind of what that environmental scan will look like, which I think we're gonna dive into tonight to understand what that means. And then the other piece was about the strategic planning survey, and is it like a general survey that you tend to use, or is it specific to our district as we do our environmental scan and wanna dig into like, well, why is that coming up? Can questions be honed into things that we want more information about, or is it already kind of set?
It is unique to this district, and we'll talk more a little bit about it tonight, but at the next meeting, we're gonna finalize it.
Okay.
So, and it needs to be personalized, it can't be generic. That would not suit you or the process. So it's a really good question.
We talked about not only the timeline, but also like the work to be done is kind of like checklist of things that we've done quite a few of them already, and
Feels so good, right?
feels good, right? So that's a good thing. And then we sort of hit the same bullet I think Dave was talking about, but I guess I'll try to, and I think people, you said the environmental scan, you talked a little bit about how we're gonna build those pillars. I guess if I had to add a new question then from that, it might be, how are we, it says the key themes from all the inputs. So some of them we've been involved with partially, and some of them we haven't, because you've listed a lot of the listening sessions. I'm just wondering how those key themes will come together from all of that.
I'll show you a sample tonight of how the key themes come together, and then you will get them, the data and the key themes over the course of the next 2 weeks so that we can look at them the next time. But you'll see how they come together tonight. So that's good. Come back and sit down. Thank you for that. So our next step, and Ron, I should have asked you this earlier. I wasn't thinking we would approve the minutes, but we can, if that would be advisable. So one of the things that when you ask how does it come together is the minutes are the repository of some of the work that you do in small groups. I hope you noticed that we tried to capture it in here. So this will be helpful to us down the road as we look at the environmental scan information, because tonight's a great example. We're going to gather information from multiple groups, and then it will be put into here. And the next time we're together, Brian and I will lead you in an activity where we start to pull out some key themes from there and see how they enhance, complement, or don't complement what we heard in the visioning and listening sessions. So, did any of you have any questions about the minutes? I know they were long, but like I say, it's a place where we try to capture the information so that you see that. I'll tell you a couple things that surprised me when I looked at it. On page 2, if you have them, oh, and I have them up here, hang on a second. Let me make it bigger. Yeah, thank you. Empathize instead of emphasize. I thought this was interesting to me. You know, words that resonate with you. Growth was a big one. So these are always things that I like to keep in mind, you know, as we think, so how are we tending to growth of staff in the plan? How are we tending to growth of students? That one really came about And no doubt the word excellence was the second one there, which was interesting because that really resonated in the listening sessions. You'll see in a little bit. Lots of things that came out in terms of, take a look at the vision statements a little bit further down. Look at how many people identified this as needing focus. Promote a staff and student culture that encourages exploration, risk-taking, resilience, and responsibility. You know, again, of the group, that one really bubbled to the top. And so there isn't an exact science about some ways the key themes. These are all things we just have to keep in mind as we look at the raw data and see, okay, so how do we do that? And we'll have conversations in the month of February, a lot of them around, so what does that look like? How do we do that? How do we make sure that we are addressing that regarding culture? And the other thing I would say when you look at the minutes is, that doesn't mean that partnering with staff, students, family, business, and community isn't important, the one above it, because only one member addressed that as the most critical need. That's still important. It's just that that one really rose up, so we just really want to be intentional in how we look at that and not let it be something we just let happen naturally. Make sense? Are there any other questions from the minutes? All right. So as we look at this, we'll go through just a very brief overview of the visioning sessions, the listening sessions that we did, just to give you some information and a little bit about the process of how it goes to key themes. But we're not going to analyze the key themes tonight. Just wanted to show you the process so that you can understand what you'll be getting for us to do this next time. So these were the questions that we asked. And as we think about it, a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Question number 1 was all about the strengths, right? So what is the district doing well? What do we need to make sure that we don't take out of the plan, because this is our bread and butter, we do this well, and we want to make sure that we keep doing it well. Question 2 is generic. What's important to focus on to improve? That's the weakness question, but I always like opportunities for improvement better than weakness. And then based on some of the information that we had, we probed in on some of those in 3, 4, and 5, trying to get a little bit more specific around, so what do we want to focus on in this plan regarding serving students? Question 4, engaging and retaining staff. New staff retention was something we wanted to probe into. And then question 5, communication with lots of different parties, right? So we probed on those. Then question 6 was the question about threats. Question 7 was about opportunities, and question 8 was the catch-all at the end. Anything else you want to tell us? So those were the questions that we asked all 15 groups. So we held 15 sessions, and we had a total of 60 participants attend these sessions. 15 staff, 36 parents and community members. We had multiples. Sometimes we had parents and community members in some sessions, so we didn't, I couldn't tell you if it was 8 community members and 16 parents.
And participation picked up as we went along, so thanks for getting the word out. Word out there.
And we got about 550 total comments. So here's the thing I tell you. I think participation could have been better, but we'll do a good job with the survey, and 60 is certainly statistically significant. We're okay with that in terms of where we're at in a district this size. We're okay with that participation. The survey will be important. So without going into too much detail, and you know this if you were there, we captured each as I typed. Brian facilitated and I typed. So we captured pretty much verbatim every comment the way it was said. And people could see it, and that's really important to me, because the last thing I want is for Mary Jane to feel, yeah, wait a minute, Joanne made this, yeah, that's not what I said, or wait a minute, did you add that, or, you know, this needs to be, people need to feel confident that we captured their voice. So that's the first thing we did. And then, real easily, we just did a database. So here's all the strengths comments. So all the strengths comments, there were a total across the sessions, almost 100 of them. Whoops. So, okay, so that's what we did next is created an overall database of them.
You can see the tabs at the bottom for all the questions.
So they're all there from all of the sessions, so we just compiled them that way. And then this is the one that takes time, but it's the one that I think is important, and that is, so for example, learning is valued was a comment, and it's comment number 3 from the database. Yeah, I can. So we're not going to spend, you will get all of these, we're not going to spend time on it, but what you see is there were lots of comments about strengths being in academics, there's a strong achievement orientation, and the building blocks, the foundational building blocks, reading, writing, were sound. Right? So that came across very, very clearly. So that's what we did for each of these, so that we could capture what are the key themes. So let me go back. Are there questions about the process? So that's what we did in terms of that. And here's what we found. And at our next meeting, we'll dig into this, but I wanted to give you a little bit a little bit of a taste, an appetizer of what this all feels like. So, and these are somewhat in order, but I can't say numerically number 4 has more than number 5 or whatever, but just to talk through it, these were the strengths that were identified by the most people in those focus groups. So there's a strong focus on academics. The building blocks, very strong. People commented on, and there are some things that I think could really be used for messaging in the district. I moved here because of this. I mean, there were really wonderful comments that people were just very, very, very much feeling there's a strong testing, there's good things going on that way. Many people commented on the staff, their resilience, how much they care for students. And again, I've got lots of comments underneath it that you can dig into individually, but staff was a strength. This one came up a lot, a variety and quality of student experiences in the arts, in music, drama, a wide variety of extracurricular experiences available. That came up. A sense of a family feel, a like of the size of the district, especially in the feeling of it being on one campus, and that sense of having a good feeling of family. And that was said by parents and staff. Just that sense of, I like who I work with, I like how that feels. And then lastly, in this one, I'm really pleased with, it's always nice to see, that STEM was a big part of the last strategic plan, and it rose to something people commented on, that they liked the STEM focus and would like to see more of it. We will go into much more detail about these, and you'll see some of the comments, but those are all things you kind of make you feel proud, right? It did me for you. So I think the idea then, and some opportunities for improvement, the idea of really making sure leaders, and when I say leaders, administration, board, really focus on building a culture of trust and engagement. Intentionally, really, it's more than transparency, it's that sense of really building that is there. Staff retention, not a surprise. I mean, I think that we knew that one would rise. And some good ideas that you'll see emerging from that. We asked the question about communication, and while I put it in there as we did this, just as an overall, there were ideas around, my goodness, we need a district newsletter again, or we need to, X, Y, or Z, lots of ideas. But I would say the one that resonated with me is, and again, you can see it and how it resonates, is consistency of communication. I think if we heard it once, we heard it multiple times. There's a lot of communication going out from the building and district level, but how do we orchestrate it and have it be consistent from classroom to classroom? And I don't know how, that's something I often hear in these sessions is, teacher A uses SMORE and teacher B uses Class Dojo, and I don't know from year to year. And so I think if that's something that we want to preserve in the district, then we have to really think about how do we help parents transition from one platform to another, from those types of things. How can we be intentional? It wasn't about more communication, it was about the orchestration of it more than it was more.
Quite a few comments came back that a lot of things got repeated too in communication. And if you could just narrow it down to the new stuff, that would save time on the parent side or community side, reading that stuff. said, there's a lot of repeat information coming out from different sources.
The other thing that I would say about communication that I want to be honest about and say that there was a sense of social media is a runaway train and we need to control our narrative in the district, meaning we need to share our positive story because what's on social media often isn't accurate or even positive. So how do we really control the narrative? And control sounds like it's too manipulative, but really, how do we keep messaging around the good things going on so that we can turn that tide? I would say was another piece of communication.
Kind of had two sides to it, being, forward thinking, getting out there first, and being responding to that kind of negativity out there. So it was both getting the message out first and also responding.
And so this is an area that always happens on these surveys. So oftentimes when people come, you'll hear the story of my child is tagged they aren't challenged enough, or it's often a very personal story, and this is where an environmental scan is helpful because we need to look at the data and not just say, oh, because 5 people said it in a focus group, is that true? So how are we serving some of our groups to make sure that it's really accurate? Because those were very personal comments, but I would say that bucket was one that rose there. But you will get all of this information, but I just wanted to give you a snippet so that you saw the process and then what we'll do. But the most important thing for you to think of as we move into February now, moving down the line is, so staff retention may be a strategic objective. I think that it probably will. What might be things that we'd recommend doing underneath that sub-bullet? We'll get to that.
I saw a couple of people taking notes, and this is what we've teased out so far from the visioning sessions. This is not the final list. Don't get wed to this, okay? Because the survey may bring out some other things that bubble to the top, and some of these guys might drop off. So don't think this is it, okay? This is what we are, where we're at right now with the visioning sessions.
So one of the things we might do, and again, we're going to work on this in the next week, for the survey is say, in the listening sessions, these were the top 5 strengths. Would you rank order them? And then would you tell us, potentially, what did you feel we missed? What isn't there that you would say is a strength of the district? And then we might even probe to that question. So in what you ranked number 1, what would you like to see done? Something to that end, or something so that we get some action plan ideas, not just, yeah, this is a big deal, but kind of give us some, so what do you want us to do about it, questions with it. So we're in the process of working on that. Questions? All right. So that's where we are now. In front of you, you have a sample of, just to review, I always think it's important, Brian and I, you have a great mission. You have a great mission, and clearly, I always love when this happens. You have focused in this district on academic excellence, and you have focused on inspiring curiosity, and you focused on growth in a very much looking at assessments and measuring that growth from an academic lens, is from what I could see in the last plan. When you think about it, again, always trying to think as we move forward, what's the next iteration, what's the next step as we think about that? Similarly, when you look at these vision statements, so curriculum will continue to be in this plan, no doubt, curriculum enhancements. What does number 2 look like in a student experience? What does professional development need to look like for all employee groups? How can we better partner? That will be a pillar for some ideas. Number 5, what does that culture look like with exploration, risk-taking, resilience, responsibility? Is there one of those words that we need to focus on even more? Tonight that may come up in some of our small group work. What does a secure, inclusive, engaging, educational, and work environment look like? And then what are our next steps with technology and student learning? And also for operations as well. I mean, those aren't going to change, so we need to keep thinking, how do we take those and propel them forward as we look at this. So in front of you now, you have this document. And we are not going to get caught up tonight in what we're going to call the pillars. That's work that we can do later. It's not important tonight. We'll figure that out. But I do think it's important that we start getting our minds wrapped around, what does that goal look like? And it might use, some mission language and the like as we move forward. We'll start this work in February. What does a goal statement look like? So in this one, it was all students are safe, known, and valued. We may want to stick with mission language here. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's not like we need to have lots of other things. But what is it that we really want for all students? But the thing that should start percolating for you now as we go into these environmental scans are what I would call the strategic objective areas. So we know, for example, workforce or staff experience, or whatever we call it, is going to be, and in all likelihood, a strategic objective might be retention, right? And so what are those subgroups underneath? That's where the plan starts to unfold, is so what are those big hitting areas underneath each of those big pillars that we are going to start thinking about? And, this one has 5. I always say, think about a district this size. If everyone has 3 to 5, that's 20 things to work on. If everyone has 5, that's a lot. So we really need to make sure that we are picking the right ones that really are the biggest need and the biggest leverage, the highest reward, the most, those are the ones that we start to think of. And again, this is the work that will start in February, but it all starts to percolate now as you put the puzzle pieces together. What are those big areas underneath here? I'm not advocating for what's on here, but what I'm telling you is the strategic objectives, and then, oh yeah, you know what? With retention, we might want to look at a salary study, or those would then get into the action plans. I think we're starting to think about, as we look at the data, what's starting to come and percolate a little bit around what might be in some of these pillars. And that's what we'll do when we look at the data.
At a deeper level, though, once we get the plan done, there'll be definite action items. They'll have to take place over a 5-year period. That work will be done after the strategic plan is blessed, and there'll be more meat put on the bones later for those things that we want to get accomplished through the next 5 years. So there'll be even another level of detail that administration and staff will work on to create those checklists, if you will, those things, for the items that need to be worked on.
So tonight, as we think about the work we're going to do in some small groups, I'm challenging you to start thinking in this realm here. We know, the dashboard group that, Ron, you're going to facilitate will be very much focused on teaching and learning. The staff survey will be focused on workforce. The parent survey will be focused on, community and parent engagement. But what's rising to the top as issues we need to really be taking a look at? Are things coming to the forefront? And then what might be some things that populate underneath it that might be, again, we're just brainstorming tonight. We're going to capture those brainstorms tonight. Okay, so we're going to get into some small groups, and we're going to have some discussion around these 3 things, and people are going to move from station to station to do this. So here we go. Let me try to give you some good directions. This is going to take about a half hour with roughly 10 minutes at each station. And we're really, at this point, looking at student performance data and perception data. And so this is yet another piece of data where we're trying to say, how does this inform what we heard in these listening sessions and what we heard in the survey? So here we go. Group A is going to start at station 1 with the dashboard, and that's going to be right over here. Group B is going to do the staff survey, and I didn't say that right. Station 2 is the staff survey, And station 3 is the parent perception survey. If you have it on your computer or you have it with you, bring it along, but we've got a copy to look at as well. So, if you are A, you're starting here. Starting over here. If you are, and Ron, you're there.
Yep.
If you are, over here. If you are group B, we're gonna go here.
Oh. Well, I guess.
And group C is starting over here.
Apologies, there's only one copy of the parent survey.
That was,
You wanna talk about the,
I did not.
it's fine. It's, okay.
Oh, station C is on.
Yeah.
I saw it broken down.
So, Joanne, you just wanted to capture some of the thoughts?
Yep.
so that's
Oh,
what the.
hang on a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that you're there, giving directions is hard when there's movement. So, there's some paper, and the conversation is about this. When you looked at this information, what questions did the data raise? And how does this information possibly inform the strategic plan update that we're working on? In other words, what might be a goal or a strategic objective? So another way I always like to put it in language, wow, when I read this survey, it said we need to do this. We need to address this issue. And these might be some ideas to do that, right? So that's the task, and we're going to take about 10 minutes in each station. Brian, Ron, and I are going to stay, and you guys are going to move. And so let me first ask, do you have any questions? All right, I'm going to get my phone. So that I
Apologies,
can-
we only have one copy because somebody.
Joanne, you don't want us to think pillars, is that correct?
No, not pillars.
Just the pillar goal. Okay.
You wanna use this, that's pretty small.
And Ron, do you want to do summary
Survey come to student share.
Yeah.
It's 2024.
This is staff.
This is what they presented at the press board meeting.
Yes. This one probably has every question on it. They just
They said this, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. So data-wise, you're about 5 pages in when it starts to show some of the data.
We will be.
Getting into some of these charts might be.
I'm going to set this at 7 minutes so that I can give people a 3-minute warning.
They relate to the engagement at New York.
Steve, can you give us some background on this? How often is this survey given and when did it start? You know?
It's pretty much on the trend.
I'm not the biggest expert on this, is only my second year.
Yeah.
I just think this is only year 2.
Okay.
It's not, so the reason there's some blanks here is it's not the same survey, so we didn't use school perceptions last time. We used
So it's a
somebody else.
first
So there's
time.
some questions that came that matched school perceptions. Some, the ones that didn't are the ones there's blank.
So when we broke this down a couple different ways, it showed how it was normed against other schools,
Yes.
because at least that gave us some data. Sometimes it was normed against how we did previous, because it was a previous survey question. Does that make sense?
Yep. So as you look at it,
Yeah, that's really 40% of how you build up or define buildings. Like
what,
when we have
I'm going to ask the question as you look at it, and I know we're working, just pretty quick, but what's some good news? What would be something you'd celebrate in this survey? And then what is something that isn't clear or you have a question about?
shifting buildings. So people who are actively engaged in that.
Well, this is from, we went through all this with the student achievement committee. for school board. And so what struck me immediately was the number of people currently, number of our staff, talking about their not just their, it's that they know how to use what's there, that they know what questions to ask, that they, like me, I know how to use resources. The particular one I was really pleased to see is I'm opening to learning new techniques and improving professionally, which as a teacher is something I have to do. Because now there's AI, so that makes all our lives those kinds of things said to me, even in lots of other issues going on, people felt very solid about it.
All right, give me a
And that's what I want. I want them to be, there's environment things I also want to do, but that, I saw that as openness to learning and belief in several different areas.
I looked at that on that first question on Workday. I wish these pages would have been numbered by school perceptions, but 100% I'm open to learning new
Yes.
techniques and improving
I
professionally.
hold my team professionally accountable 95%. I mean, those are fantastic.
And one of the other ones even though there are some issues, healthy working relationships within coworkers, that has
Yes.
not always been the case. So, I mean, that's a big
That was
impact.
99%.
And you know what, that really came up boldly.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's
Something
another
before
one
that, so.
that says they feel genuinely appreciated.
Yes, that was another one that made me very pleased to see.
Appreciated by who, or team?
By their team.
The team.
So the,
That really came across in the, and again, I'm just saying, you'll see it, but teams felt very collegial would be the word that I would use. So it's interesting to hear you say that it hasn't always been that way, because it was very prevalent.
think about walking into when I arrived at my current job 20 years ago, walked into a terrible leadership situation, and I asked people, why are you still here? They're like, well, they're terrible, we have really great colleagues. And that was a reason to stay and wait out the next thing, and that was great for our students.
Are there things that are, I'm going to use the word, unclear or that you have questions about? And then we'll get into some areas with the plan.
One thing that I first thought about as I was reading this, and I see that you did it previous, and I'm sure the questions were there, but you're not really comparing apples to apples, because when that first survey was done, total different people working here, totally
Yes.
different situation going on.
Yep.
Even when this was done, Kristen was still here. So a
Yep.
lot of these questions about supervisors and how they felt about all of that, you had Kristen who was, you know, so even that compared to even now, when you do the survey, would it be different?
And one clarifying thing we need to do afterwards, especially every one of my professionals said, we didn't realize you were our supervisor. We thought a teacher was our supervisor.
You know, can I tell you something? That's something that I learned in surveys. It's a big one.
They're just interesting, interesting and skewed about the, which is fine, good or bad.
Well, and I did ask, to your point, Stacy, that school percentages, I think they said that, I'd like to see a breakdown of building, because there's been the most change in primary for that change, and so how much do we see, is intermediate profitability because of their stability, or is it, do people have these feelings of collegiality regardless, and then they have some other questions too, and that is something you can't tell in this one number. And I think Maria said they could give us that information.
Yeah, I have.
They can.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd say, wow, we should really, we need more information, or this isn't clear to me?
So, the when there's the question about trust in the school board, so, and this is something I think school board has raised as well, but what do people need? What would, as a school member, in looking to increase that number, what would I need to do to meet that expectation? And I think that'd be true in any portion of thinking about any supervisors. If there's something somebody is looking for, how do we figure out what that means?
Yeah, I find that open and honest communication an interesting question. I mean, I guess from a parent lens, if I'm looking at parent surveys, it's different.
Yes, so we've got more
for teachers, or I send out stuff that's not true, like I don't, but I guess from a staff, I guess, open and honest communication, that might be about employment, about salary, I guess it could be about a lot of different things. Is that about, you know, like, communication I'm sending out, is it the communication about
Or is
indifferences in
it personnel
salaries?
things
I
that
mean,
happen, and why personnel things happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know if that's that, or if it's a, is it a salary question?
Or decisions being made, you're part in it.
Yes,
Part
yes.
of it.
3 more
Or whether
minutes.
it's being decided and you're told. So that's kind of open.
Yes, okay, and so where do I have input? Or where was I, where is my input real, and where is it performative maybe? Like, yes, I like your input, oh, we already made this. Yes.
There's something else here too, how we feel genuinely appreciated by the school board, less than 50%. So, again, what does that feel like, what does that look like, what has the board done in the past that makes you not feel
I have an idea there, but that's the part where I need to, that I need to know, and in fact, I'd asked Kristen to be looking for something, and then that didn't. I didn't get to have that answer, because she wasn't here to tell me.
Part of it, I was gonna tell you, from a staff point of view, it's almost been like our school board is like offering this to staff. Like, we can't come to you, it's not following protocol if we come and talk to you. So it's like, it's hard to feel appreciated, it's hard to have communication if you're an entity that we can't communicate with.
Yes, yes, and I think that's I'm hearing that, trying to figure out how
To bridge that.
how to have that without circumventing chain of command, right, because you, once you talk to supervisor, so we were talking about that just last meeting, too, thinking about not just visibility, but reachability, and I also think that
We have all the resources.
frequently, people who make policies do not do these jobs. And so the opportunity to hear from the people who do the jobs, I think is part of the frustration.
And I said, because of what's going on, board members weren't allowed to come to school. No, but for staff, I want you to come in, I want you to see what I'm doing, I want you to understand what I do in my classroom every day, for you to say, hey, this is cool, I like what you're doing. And that would help with, I think.
But I also don't want you to feel like I'm surveilling.
Correct. So I mean, it's a balance, but.
Yeah, okay.
What else is in there that you would say, this is a nugget we need to think about in the strategic plan? I've got appreciation, trust. Yeah, anything.
Discipline practices were really low, and I think we're, at least at the primary school, we're working on that right now.
I've never seen that come up. Well,
Yeah.
there's no page number. I remember I just don't remember the number, maybe I don't need the page.
Now, when we break it down from elementary to middle school, we're higher, I mean, obviously, that's one of the things, but it's still something that, even when I took over 2 years ago, we have these solid systems, and it's what we're running culture teams been working. So,
2 more minutes until we move on.
because we're working on flow charts and working on, you know, because I think people might be able to answer like, I don't know, what do we use it, what's, you know, what, there's, so I think, there's probably some unknown, what is the question, how does the question read?
It says, how are you effective?
Yeah.
And I had a question about just informal feedback, how they're applied, right? Types of things. But are they effective? I think is a different question, but as a parent, like the platform. Or is it Sarah?
Well, in the discipline practices, right, it's multiple fold, right? It's classroom management, starts there first, right, and then sometimes it's not, it's just behavior pieces. Then it's how's that handled next? What are those series of pieces?
These
So
have come up in surveys that I've done. The focus groups that I've done on this topic in particular tends to focus on close the loop if I've sent someone to the office, let me know what it was, what occurred. And then also that sense of a feeling that there isn't, that the system, on one hand, the system should feel one size fits all, but not be one size fits all, and that's a no-win.
Yeah.
You know, in that you want the flexibility in some situations, and yet staff often wants that sense of, I want to understand what we do in these situations.
I had just real quick,
Yeah.
staff morale
Yeah.
was 36%.
Yes.
That was a little.
Staff, staff favoritism, 7%.
That's the opposite though, isn't it?
Right.
Good.
That's
good.
good.
Yes.
Okay, staff 36 would be.
They should, I hate that.
The lower the better.
So these are ones that they, yeah.
No. So if this, oh wait, no, this is a weird question.
Yes.
So, like, let's just say in your class, I surveyed your students, this is what they staff.
Only 7%.
Only 7% you said you showed favoritism, that's, or let's say, no, only 36% is high, everybody else is saying, my morale is low, like, you know what I mean?
Okay, so this is good, all right.
This is just a weird, yeah, so it's a weird, right, I mean, it's a reverse of the.
And then, the other one that jumped out is superintendent, no growth, 59% is not super great. And there
What was the
no-
question, I forgot?
Superintendent has mutual respect for trust in teacher and staff. To me, that seems kind of. So those are ones that jumped out.
Yeah.
I was noting a large, I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say.
Okay, so I was noting a high feeling of appreciation and professionalism among one's peers, and either less certainty or no certainty that once you go more than one level of supervisory away, that which is
Also
superintendent,
came
school
up in
board,
the focus
right, that you believe that people think you're professional.
We ready to move on or not? You need a little more time, Ron? Another minute? Okay, another minute?
Likes each other and everybody.
Yes.
All right.
Enjoys the team, like,
But you lose a principal, and it's just like, you just feel like, you feel like you're wandering.
In 2 and 6 months.
Yeah, 2 and 6 months, you're wandering.
point, I forget about that.
So even though your team's great, you're overall in school.
And what happens next? And what if I do this thing and the next person comes in and doesn't like it? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
So I'm going to add from another group into, you know, I might use a different color just so that I keep it, but I've captured the thoughts and I'll put these in the minutes. And again, I think what I really want for you to do with these minutes, if I could give you the sense is, so especially with this, so what of these resonated in the listening sessions? And I can tell you, yes, you know, like, and it's just good triangulation, right? Of we heard it, it's in the survey, it came up here, will it come up in the survey, you know? And then that tells us, yeah, that's really something we should focus on. But this is a lot, so some of these might be building level, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thank you for going with us.
Do you want us to lead resolutions?
I do. All right, let's switch. Correct, yes.
If staff discipline pieces isn't in the overall big, huge one, I'm still gonna be doing it.
So true.
You know.
It's so true.
It's kind of, it's trying to whittle it down, right?
Joanne, can you take these?
Nope, you keep that, you keep writing on that, Brian.
Oh.
Keep her going.
Mary, how are you?
Great, how are you? No, wait.
There we go.
They're coming here.
Took our,
Bring our data, let's see.
Oh, we got, hang on, we need the
Oh.
paper we're saying.
Oops, I'm so sorry.
There's only one and you take it off. and then-
Now we have 0.
Yeah.
The printer that I went to ran twice of the staff and one.
But everybody goes through. Thanks, everybody. Those are just one update.
All right, here we go. We're doing staff survey, and they're right here.
I get enough.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you. I'm gonna jot down your ideas. So this is, from what I have understood, this is the second time the district has done a staff survey.
I'm gonna go get this back.
I sure wish that they would have numbered the pages, but
Right.
given that they didn't, I think we'll just take this in three pieces. As you look at this and look at it now, what are some things that you would celebrate or say are moving in the right direction? What are some unclear things or questions you have? And then most importantly, what if you were to put a nickel down and say, you know what, this informs the plan, we need to really think about this in the strategic plan, what might you say fits that category? So always one to start with some positives. Is there anything in there that you would say, yeah, I would celebrate this is a good thing?
I wrote, well, I noticed, I guess I shouldn't
Yeah.
say I liked, there was a big difference in participation in the survey between primary and intermediate staff. I noticed that. And why is that? Is that administration? Is that exhaustion? Is that, like, what is that?
Because there were more primary than intermediate. Is that what you noticed?
Did I say that wrong?
No, I don't know.
So percentage.
There was a higher, more intermediate took it.
No.
No, primary, I have it backwards, yes.
More primary?
But it was a piece of difference, I thought it was pretty big. It wasn't between the two.
Aaron, percentage in primary was also higher than in intermediate.
Yeah.
And there are more at there are more staff, and they'd have to look at it at the primary level, so we just have to keep that in mind, but I don't know how they figured out the percentage, that's a good question that we have to probe in and just understand
Is
better.
there a difference in the tenure of the teachers at the
There
middle
was.
school versus the primary school, like newer teachers, more new teachers in the primary
There's
school?
definitely more new teachers in the primary.
And younger, I mean, if they new
Absolutely.
into being
Yes.
teachers.
Yes, brand new.
Okay. So that's also gonna, I would think that would also increase their desire to answer the survey, in that
It could,
it
yes.
changes their life dramatically, where those persons who have been here longer, sort of know how it works, and you're gonna, you've got your groove, so to speak,
I wondered too, as a parent, outsider looking at everything that's happened in the district in the last year. The bulk of it has been at the primary.
Primary.
So the higher participation in the primary could have just been people feeling like they had a voice and they could finally share their thoughts, whereas the intermediate from an outsider view was kind of more stable. The issues weren't here so much as they were at the other buildings, so that could have certainly affected participation in the survey too.
I don't have any insight, I guess, to give a good explanation. I feel very removed from my staff because of where my location is. And
And that's tough.
like in years previous, there would be a collective effort to like just, as far as I could tell in the 7th and 8th grade that we would do the survey, there are always those cliques in schools that, not intentionally or subversive, but I think surveys come with a weighted connotation in this building sometimes.
Yes.
Previous years and how those have felt to have been treated. Now, I cannot give you substantial evidence to be like, this is why.
Yeah.
But that's my feeling over the 9 years that I've been here.
Sure.
Thank you for that. As you look beyond the participation or those things into the actual, wow, 93% said this.
I
or
like
what did
that.
you see that you'd say, wow, this is good?
I like that I am motivated to give my best. I think that that's important as a professional in this building, that most of us felt like we are still there trying to give our best.
Agreed. I also love that 100% said that they were open to it, because that's not always the case. I am open to learning new techniques to improve professionally, that's awesome.
But then when you take, there was another place that I saw that, and it didn't seem like there was opportunity.
For 70%. I have opportunities for training, professional development to improve my work.
Yeah, so 100% wanted, 70%.
And that's one that's really important to look at, disaggregated by employee group. Teachers often have many more opportunities for professional development than other employee groups. That's always when I encourage people to look at by employee group. You know, if you're a food service worker, I mean, sometimes they say, I don't have any opportunity for that, so you really have to take a look at it.
So that's helpful to know.
still could be something that needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting too that they were motivated, the high percentage people said they're motivated to contribute more than what's expected of them. Which I wanna say I applaud, but then I also have to say as an employer, this is why, give you a robust job description and to pay for that, why do we want more out of you?
I know it's like it's an expectation.
I would agree that it's a professional expectation, and it's hard to disentangle emotional connection with another person.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's hard to,
I mean, I'm totally guilty of this
Yeah, me too.
myself, you know, I have a 3/4 time job and I work you know.
It's the same thing, really.
Right,
It's
right,
different,
so
but
I'm
the
like-
same. I think I was,
But is it an expectation that's set, or is it that people don't necessarily want to? I don't know. But they're motivated, so
that's good. I thought, what surprised me, or just what I noted, was 44% for our school student discipline practices and policies are effective. That certainly needs to be addressed. For sure.
Yeah, just so I captured that this was said by multiple groups. That was one that came up in the last year as well.
And it was one of the lowest percentages, if not the lowest, on the entire thing.
Are there other things that you would say might inform the plan, things that we just need to really?
I think retention, like you mentioned, I think salary schedule is really important.
Is this coming from here, or are these your views?
From, it's, I think here, the whole retention piece is so heavily involved with, I mean, a lot of it is salary, a lot of it is benefits, a lot of it is culture, like those types of things. To retain people, those all need to be good.
well, and I'm confused as to why employee morale is high as at 36%. It's such a low percentage for our morale. Like, that's not high at all, you know, like, there should be more of us that feel that we're here having a great time as best we can. Which I think could be connected to the school discipline for some.
3 more minutes. Other things that you'd say, wow, this is something we have to really keep in mind for the plan.
I thought the numbers that indicated, like this one, 99%, I have healthy working relationships with my coworkers. There were questions like that in a few places, somewhat similar to that, and those had strong scores, which is very important.
Overall,
So maintaining that is good.
I think the board questions, though, need to be addressed. The mutual respect from the board and appreciation from the board. And that's a really interesting thing as that board changes. And I think a lot of it's reaction from last year and some of the darkness that our district went through last year. But I don't know.
I would say even longer than last year, and that was significant, because the stuff that happened during 2020, 2021. You know, since 2020 till now, there's been a lot of internal turmoil that, you know, at the board level, at the community level, and then again, as it seems like at the particularly level.
Yes.
I noted that, but I didn't write it because I wasn't sure how much that affects it.
Right.
Like if last year, let's say last year wouldn't have happened, how would that be different? You know what I mean? It did happen,
but it did.
But it did, yeah.
I think the hard part, as I looked at, and again, I had the benefit of being in all the focus groups, it's hard to translate how people feel into what's actionable in a plan, right? And so when I put up an opportunity as leaders, board and administration needs to be really intentional in how they build trust, relationships. It needs to be intentional. It's not, we could spend all the time talking, whoa, people really feel it's low morale. What do we do about it in a plan, right? I mean, how do we translate that into what needs to occur? I mean, and I think that's the fun part of this work, is thinking about, so what does that look like in an action plan?
Giving those administrators that curiosity to look at what's happening in a positive viewpoint or a positive approach and asking it, not like reacting.
Are any of you in an organization that rounds? Meaning that administrators or leaders, have a conversation with you every 30 days around what's going well, who's been someone helpful to you, or some of those tactics could be helpful here.
you know, just those things of, so what do we do with intentionality?
I have parents.
To piggyback on that, allowing staff to feel comfortable that if that isn't happening, they can safely go to someone and just share what they're thinking. And have it be, doesn't have to be agreed with or disagreed with, but just be open to hearing.
That is something the district actually offered us this year. It's a third-party person that you can, she gave us her number. She has been in the education profession for a long time. You can call her and be like, hey, this is my situation. She has no connection to anybody here. She just needs to tell the board that this is how many phone calls I got, this is what I'm dealing with. Where you can, yeah, so, I've only heard of like 1 or 2, but again.
One more minute.
Disconnect doesn't, not a good indicator.
Okay.
How much time are the board, how much of their time is dedicated towards staff elements? I've never been to a board meeting, I'm usually clue. Is it?
So previous boards have come into staff meetings and like kind of talked personable in the sense that they were trying to be more open and active, whereas over the last few election cycles, it has gotten more distant and less personal, if you will. So like, I would say.
So there's not any like formal time of the boards assigned to reviewing and addressing issues or trends or.
That I can't speak to specifically and directly in the sense that I have not been part of a thing where that happened. And I know that it was an unusual thing for board members to come to staff meetings. Like, that's not a practice that happens in most schools. But I will say that was, for me personally, I liked it. I liked having that personal relationship with the board members because it gave validity to what I was doing, and it showed me that they were on the path of trying to do what's right for the kids.
You can shout.
Are we ready to move?
Anything else?
It's uncounted. I think it was uncounted, but.
Someone said it in the last group. How do we get board members? How do we get board members to build those relationships without breaching chain of command? You know, how can they come into schools but not feel that the teachers are feeling surveilled? Or, you know, I mean, it's finding that right, kind of to your point, that right vehicle, right, and the right opportunity.
Is it during a board meeting?
You know,
Is it
what do we
during-
do with that
How do
situation?
we
And
highlight?
these are these are doable. We just needs to think. That's the sub bullets under that idea of, you know, what are the ideas that could be done.
Like it
That
had a
is such
board
an
meeting to
interesting
say.
concept. Like, that has me really thinking, as an educator, do they need to know, I would like for them to know who I am and the importance of my job and contribution, but like to know, that's like very different to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Like, if they're supposed to be like up here, kind of.
But I'm thinking to the point, how do you build that? It's like, could you say that the board meeting, we encourage the board to have an opportunity to, the first board meeting of the year, to highlight the first grade teachers, the pre-K teachers, and to highlight, you know, to learn something about who they are, what they do, what's a curriculum highlight, what's the thing they struggle with, and do that at every board meeting, to say each board meeting will highlight a different age
The
group.
question I would have is, while it's nice to, you know, put a sticker on the chart, as my kindergartner will tell you, and I'm all for it, but the thing for me is having a voice. And yeah, you can come into my classroom, but guess what? The 22 kids rolling around on the floor behind me are getting most of my attention, right? So that's the thought is like, how do you get in there to have a voice? And the other thing in here that stood out to me was like, you know, the commitments don't get followed through on. And which it wasn't a big drop year over year, but it was a little bit of a drop.
All right,
How
let's
do we-
move.
How do we give them a voice and make sure those commitments are followed through?
The staff.
Yes, the staff specifically, yeah. Because I feel like curriculum wise, people are going through changes, but it seems like the school as a whole has an eye on it.
Yeah.
And you can leave these here. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I hope that the other groups haven't sucked all your energy.
No.
I'm excited.
We're ready.
Your
I
paper
made a
looks
latte
awfully
before
filled
I
up here.
came, so I have my caffeine.
I'm excited to listen. So we have the staff survey, and there are more things I don't know about the staff survey. But I believe this is the second time it's been done. Although I think that someone said in the last time, conditions are dramatically different from last time.
always my
This time,
mistake, too.
even people taking it are different. So I don't know about extrapolating from last time to this time in terms of trend data. But I guess, just, did you have a chance to look at this before tonight?
I watched the presentation at the school board.
Oh, very, thank you. You know, are there things that give you, that you would celebrate or give you hope? Are there things that are unclear or that you have questions about? And then lastly, what might be some things that are opportunities that the plan might address? So let's start with some positives. Are there things in the plan that you would say, wow, this is good news, or this is hopeful, or heartening, or just overall positive?
I got a question on the participation rate. Like you said in the first one, you know, 67% that people care about their job in the district. Does that seem average or low, or is it seems kind of low to me? That not everyone would want to do that if you work here and live here. I mean, that's your job.
I always try, I'm gonna answer the question two ways. It's statistically significant, it's fine, but I usually tell people, and this used to be my world in my life, about 75% at the very least is what you strive for, a participation rate. Because then it's a little bit more aggregated and you get a better dipstick. So someone talked about how do we increase participation, and I would agree.
I mean, to me, as a staff, it seems
I'll say that, I don't know what kind of rabbit holes we went down, so.
that's a third of the people that do
No, I know,
it.
I will say that staff have been leery of filling things like this out after the onslaught of open records requests that happened last year, when people filled out exit interviews, thinking that they were confidential leaving the district, and then some of those records requested, and names were taken off, and you could pretty easily figure out row 3 on every response was this previous person, and you could piece together. So I'm hopeful that now that this has come out and staff can see what that looks like, and staff can see what kind of individual responses are available or not available, will build confidence in the staff to be able to take future services.
But I also say, in your role as an ambassador, to say that we used it, right? I mean, that it's informing the plan. I also think, you know, as a staff member, why would I take it? Is it being used?
Right, is it gonna affect
So-
positive change?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's something else.
Leery
But
when
I
they
get
came
it.
out of,
Especially, I remember seeing that, right.
Well, and not knowing if it's anonymous is a big piece of it.
I mean, I
No, I
feel
feel- I mean-
like, I put my name on it.
well, correct, this is where I'm at, Jordan, I was like, you wanna see
Yeah,
it
that's
here, have my
how I
whole email
feel.
account, you can see
Well,
whatever I
and
say.
to that
Anything
point,
else in the data itself, not the participation of the survey. I don't know if anyone brought notes, but that you would say, wow, this is heartening, or this is
She's
good.
not letting us put on there.
I
I'm
know,
not rabbit
I
hole.
appreciate her for that, yeah, I do. I mean,
That's
there were great, as we compare previous to current, there were good strides in people saying that they know what resources are available, people saying that they're motivated to contribute more than is expected of them.
learning new techniques, there's only a 2% change down, but that's really high at 98%.
Right.
I think
People
it's
asking
interesting
for
that
help increased by 14%.
most of the people were under fire meetings that have worked.
That's just our staff right now.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
We had 40% staff turnover this
Yeah.
year, so that was,
But you can see that almost from, you
Right.
can tell that from.
Yeah.
I would say it's nice to see, regardless of the number, that there hasn't been much change in the question, like employee morale is high, like I don't know. It's not like it's gotten a lot better, but it certainly
but it
hasn't
hasn't
gotten.
fully plummeted.
Yes, right, I don't know, I'm looking for the,
Yes, but there was a different question.
there was, right.
Oh, no, that was, about favoritism, rows down, that was super interesting. Staff favoritism is an issue in this building.
And that improved.
No, because this column is previous.
Previous is
Well, they
second.
said that they
But I
felt
think that's-
favoritism at 39%
Yeah, I
before.
think that one is.
And now it's
So we
7.
want that to go
Yeah,
down.
we do want that to go.
Thank you.
And,
Oh, yeah.
by the way, and I'll talk about this, they should ask, they should ask school perceptions to make all the questions in one way, so that you don't have
Because
to.
like, looking
Because
at
this is how
which
learners
one-
would do it, be like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna
Low
ask
is
two
good or
different
low
ways.
is bad, it should
Yeah.
be consistent
Yes.
all the way through, right?
Yeah.
And that's easy enough to turn the question around and report it that way.
Right.
Is there anything that you would say, wow, this is perplexing? I mean, boy, I don't get this.
From working here or? No,
Okay,
I
so
think
this
it-
is
no,
what
I
I
love
pointed
my
to the
job.
family one as well. I'm always just very interested in, like, that it's the last question. How likely are you to recommend this place of employment?
Right.
There's a lot of things on here that people said were very positive, right? We have people saying that they know how to use their tools, they're motivated to work hard, they're,
My supervisor listens,
yeah, and so
90%.
people said a lot of really positive
A
things.
comfortable work environment was
Yeah.
Right, and then we get to the bottom, and 47% of people give it a neutral or below.
Right.
And I think when we talk about retaining staff and attracting good new staff, it's like half of our people right now, if a job got posted, are saying they probably
They might
would
jump.
reach out to somebody and say, hey, you should come work in our district.
Right.
And that's not gonna, like, okay, I'm gonna stay out of the rabbit hole. I'm gonna touch, I'm gonna poke at it and I'll run away the other way. I think as we try to fill, last year we had 40% staff, we have a ton of jobs to fill. And if we are not attracting staff based on having worked with them previously, having known that they're good, if we're solely relying on an interview process for those people to showcase what they have, we're going to end up with a situation like we had with our principal, who came in and did an interview process well, and we hired her, and then she didn't stay.
Right.
And so I think the best way to truly know what you're getting is to like attract people. Other people have worked with, right? We want to attract people who I've been into friendship with Ashley.
Right.
I know she works really hard for kids. I want her
Right.
to come work in our district. I'm going to call her personally. I'm going to put my personal recommendation for her. Because then when she comes to work here,
I know
she
firsthand how that works.
Right.
right? She
The
already
enthusiasm
feels,
of it.
she already feels bonded to someone in the district,
Right.
so that there's this.
But that's why I think it's that way, it's because the new staff isn't as committed. They enjoy or they respect their supervisor and they like what they're doing, but yet they're not, they just got the job and it's easy to leave when you just start something new. I think that's why they're not negative responses, but yet they say they would never respond. I think that's why we're seeing.
Something isn't bonding them here. Is
Yeah,
the point
they're
to
not-
want to recommend.
They haven't been here long enough to understand really why they enjoy it. You know,
Because
Or to be
70%.
certain that they want to recruit somebody else to join them here. To call, at the end of this year, to call somebody up and say, hey, there's a job open on my team, like.
3 more minutes.
because
So I
you've
think
been
that
here
one
longer
was
than me.
concerning too.
Right.
I just, I don't know, I want people to want good people to work here.
And when that happens and they call up, you know, people they've worked with, then those people, I mean, at least if it's like me, once you're here, if I came for someone else at their recommendation, I would feel a stronger sense of like, I need to stay, I'm gonna work really hard because she recommended me, or I'm gonna do it for her, like it gives you more than just yourself.
Yeah, and then you see someone leave more than you're comfortable, and then it's, you wonder why did that happen? What,
Right.
you know, so there's a lot of uncertainty. There's two different sides of that, I think, too, but I know, yeah, I think what you're saying is accurate.
I tend to see, you know, I'm gonna call them the bucket areas in work experience go 2 ways. One being very topical, right? We just, we're gonna pick the biggest 3 or 4 we have to work on. And the other one being very chronological. What are we gonna do to hire great people? What are we gonna do to onboard? What are we gonna do to retain, you know, develop and then retain them? You know, and then it tends to be very chronological. And there's no right way or wrong way. But if you end up going that route, it really would be interesting to see who is comfortable recommending people. It isn't people with more tenure, you know, and is that a strategy that then you really work full out to help your more veteran staff?
That
Be
is
recommenders.
a really interesting question, as we look at the 53% of people who say
Right.
that they're likely to recommend it. I wish we could break it down into how
That
many of those
composition.
are the less than 6,
Right.
and how many of those are the 6, is it the?
And I don't know.
Right.
Is it the
But I don't know if
veterans?
principals know. I mean, those are really good questions to try and delve in on. Maybe we can get that
Our
going.
veteran
And then what's the
staff.
discrepancy between 70% being somewhat satisfied, but yet we're not gonna recommend?
And I always think, what does
Satisfied
it
you have to
take?
be.
Yeah.
Right, what does it take to move it, right? I mean, I always think about that in testing,
Right,
when
what's the
kids are
needle?
on the cusp.
Yeah.
What does it take to move you into advanced proficient?
Right.
Right, because our very satisfied dropped, right? We had 30% very satisfied, now we only have 14% very satisfied.
And seemingly went here, maybe.
Correct,
Right.
Same thing.
But some of these dissatisfied people, because that one also dropped, so some
Right.
dissatisfied people
Went up, hopefully.
became somewhat satisfied, and some very satisfied
Sure.
people became.
So I guess I would take, yeah, would I take that? Would be a very satisfied person, or I don't know.
So here's what I'm gonna do.
I mean, it could be
Help
a
us.
day or a week
No,
of
it's,
survey.
well, I mean, this
I
is,
mean,
Someone could
somebody,
have some work event happen.
Yeah.
and truly, when
On the
was
week
this?
of the survey, and that hour.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
Well, and that was brought up at the primary school, because the survey deadline was October 27th, and Kristen, like,
Oh,
her
right,
last
the timing.
walkout day, I think, was the 14th, was the day that she was like, I'm done being a principal, and left.
A
So,
week before.
correct.
That's
So-
about the time frame that that first communication came out, right?
Yes, and so all in the same time
Yeah,
frame,
it's-
if you were working in the primary
So
school,
we
you
just
were
gotta
doing
follow
no, because it is what it is, it's a point in
Yeah.
time. And I will tell you that,
Yeah.
in my experience, there's always something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a hard time to find the right time for a survey, so you kind of just go and stick
Yeah.
with
the moment.
You gotta
But
do it.
here's what I'm gonna ask of you, is I'm gonna type this up into the minutes, and next time we're going to look at the, you know, pieces about staff retention and pieces about, some of the opportunities in that. And I would love for you to be able to say, oh, yeah, there's some ideas around this, morale, or, oh, you know, retention, or, you know. I mean, I think that what we wanna do is, to use a highfalutin word, is kind of triangulate. So what did we see in the survey that we heard in the listening sessions that we then see in a follow-up survey? Because that's gold. If it's in all three, you'd go, yep, we gotta do something about that.
Right.
That's a fine. So
Okay.
as we look at the minutes from this, find those patterns when we look at data. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's come back to our seats.
I did not, it was brought before you. This one says what?
This is Adrian,
This is
this is
Stacey.
Shirley.
This was your tree.
No, I'm kidding.
We're gonna help you,
I'm
Jordan.
pretty close to the hearing. I thought of them.
So I'm just trying to be
So
self.
where they start, and that's really where we take a look at, hey, who's not being.
All right, we're coming back.
Come on, Mr. Wagner, come on back. I can't believe there's anything else to add to that poster. I know this one. Love me a good Mr. Sketch. Mr. Sketch.
Are you defective for outreaches? Or how you mean you're here? By the way, Ashley, everybody can read my writing, even upside down.
Oh, good, I'm so.
So proud.
I mean, I'm,
Engineer type.
well, I am the daughter and the wife of the manager, so I think all of us. I really
I tried to bury my head.
Have you ever had that done before?
No, I've had it.
Why do you?
Yeah, well, it's different paint, so I like bringing a lot
All right.
Yeah, now they have.
So, what I want to tell you is trust the process. Right now, we're filling our brain and building capacity. We're not finding answers, right? We're building the, shucks, I love that. We're building that sense of, oh, this seems to be important. Oh, what does the survey, what does the listening session say? Oh, yeah, that is important. Oh, oh. So we're trying to find those answers. So in the group on the staff survey, there were lots of positive things. That the staff, they feel they have a desire to learn, a willingness to learn, they feel good at what they do, they feel they hold their team accountable, relationships with colleagues are strong, they feel appreciated by their team, that they have enough resources. I have to tell you, that's very rare. Motivated to give their best, willingness to ask for help. So lots of good positives, lots of good positives. And then there were some things that were just questions that we had about the data. And again, nothing that we have to go into huge amounts about, but things that we just want to keep in mind. And I'll write those up in the minutes so that we keep those. But then, these are things that we would say, maybe this will inform the plan. So, there seems to be a disconnect. Appreciation that staff feels they get from their teammates is very different than what they feel they get from the board and administration. Also came up in the trust. How does the board take action to develop trust without violating chain of command? What does that look like? Discipline practices came up as something staff would like to be more consistent, and the word was effective. Again, what does that look like? I don't know if that's going to bubble up into the plan or not, but again, just something we have to look for. Are parents saying discipline's a big issue? Are other, staff in other ways? We just want to keep aware of that. Morale. It's not going down, but why is it low? What is it that would really address that? Is there favoritism? Is there support? And that one goes here, superintendent, administration. Opportunity to learn isn't as high as the desire to learn, which is interesting. Staff, someone commented that the staff has a high desire to learn, but aren't feeling the same in terms of the opportunities being there. And I wonder how much that's influenced by different employee groups taking the survey too. Comments around culture, benefits, how do we get follow through and voice of staff stronger? And I think the last group talked about, why doesn't the staff recommend this as a place to work? What do we need to do about that? And that's a very good measure down the line that net promoter. So these were some things the survey yielded that we want to be aware of as we think about other sources of information for us. How about, you want to go or?
Oh. When we looked at the parents' survey, a lot of people were upset that there's only a 36% participation rate. Statistically, I think it's good because you have 1,000 parents, you get 360 parents doing it. But yeah, you would like to see that a lot higher. So statistically, it's okay, but yeah, you might want to have that higher. I don't think it's a bad response. A lot of surveys, only get like 20% or something like that. I've seen some that get 11%. There you have a real culture issue, so it's not bad. What led to less involvement at the intermediate school? It seemed like more parents at the primary school took the survey. That might just be a function of age. As when the kids are young, you pay a lot of attention to them. When they get to high school, you don't have anything to do with them. So it kind of changes as they grow. So why was excellence a strength in the visioning sessions that we talked about just before? But the the way people did the survey, it was below the state average in terms of how they felt about the Merton's delivery about academic excellence. So that seemed to be disconnected here. You know, the visioning section was very high, but in the survey, they didn't rank that so high. And it's kind of interesting, given your vector of improving academics that have been going on for the last 5 years. So it seems to be inconsistent there. A lot of people picked up on the leadership and communication, which dealt with the board. So why is that category so low? There's 3 questions in there, and they all kind of look at it. There's a lot of communication that you would like to get more information on. You know, what is the preferred method? How do people want to be communicated? That's one of the problems with the reception surveys. They have their set questions so they can compare to all other districts. But, you know, there's a lot of things you'd really like to dive into. I'm not sure that the information in that survey on how those people want to be communicated, what they want communicated. So this one was picked up by everybody. You know, it said 44% of our families feel neutral or less than recommending the school district to others. Again, why would that be when, you know, you're an acknowledged academic leader? Why do we score so low or score lower on the healthy culture as compared to other districts? And communication, there was a question about what does informative, what do they feel, what does a parent feel like is informative? What information are they looking in your emails? Another question is, what is meant by not going in the right direction? That is a terrible survey question, by the way, because it doesn't provide, you know, any real detail. It's just kind of like those nightly news surveys where it says the country going in the right direction. Depends on which way you're driving, I guess, I don't know, but, so, it doesn't really provide enough detail here about what does that mean. To what extent does the administration situation affect the healthy culture? This gets back to the changes that were happening in the district.
And I believe we're right at the time of this survey.
Yeah, right. The timing of the survey probably could be worse for that question, actually. Bullying, what would you like to see done differently? And taken from a system level, because the bullying was identified there, not that it was an outlier, it was pretty much consistent with the average for other school districts, but when they identify that, what do they want to see done differently? The board administration, what can the board administration do to increase the confidence of parents? There's a number of questions in there that may trust in that team, and low trust in that team. And how does the board dysfunction that happened recently affect the survey? How does that lingering impression affect how people take the survey? How do we structure the strategic plan that we're all working on so that it isn't impaired by changes to leadership? We'll change out to a board, we'll change out to administration. How do we make sure that that strategic plan lives and breathes far beyond what the staff might be, what the administration would be? And then how do we engage parents? How do we help parents engage effectively within the district? Anything to add to that somebody just had a brief comment?
I have a question about the survey. I've taken many school perception surveys over the years as a parent and a teacher. Previously, they used to allow comments, now they don't. Was that ever an option, or does that just kind of turn into a spiral of too much?
Yep, it was an option. It was an option, and we decided to take that off because at this first time, with all that was happening, we just wanted quantitative data that we could benchmark against.
Okay.
Yep. That's why we did that.
And to your point about taking the survey year after year, now they're kind of stuck, because they always want to compare it to the previous year, so they can't change it too radically, otherwise they can't do longitudinal stuff.
Right.
Ron, what do you got?
Okay, sure.
From your group?
So again, we took a look at the academic, again, just a quick, that's the dashboard. Again, I did remind everybody too that we do have the real micro details of, you know, all the data, whether it be cohort data, arrowhead data, whatever it might be too. So what do we see? They saw a lot of progress each year, which was great the last 2 years, a lot of progress there. We still had some questions about how COVID, because the COVID, especially our early learners, haven't gotten there yet. You know, we think of our 4K and 5Ks as they went through that too as well. iReady basically is a strength that they saw because it's fast, it's immediate, it happens 3 times a year, that you can continue to track progress and teachers can make immediate changes if in fact it's needed. They also highlighted that we're doing well compared to the national norm in the iReady data. Again, we don't have any district level comparisons to other school districts because that's not published. But again, we do have the national. But on the flip side of it, one group highlighted to say, hey, we have almost a third of our kids who aren't meeting that goal of growth in either reading or mathematics. And the question was, is there a specific demographic? Is there a reason or a group of students? And what can we as a school district do to address that if we see common themes and things like that too as well? So just kind of looking at your attributes of learners to say who is achieving and who do we need to kind of really hone in on to as well. So, and finally we talked about what would be the goal of the strategic plan, making sure that resources were still there, making sure that you maintain progress and have those benchmarks, maintain that continual cycle of improvement and staying on that curriculum cycle every 5 years to making sure that you're continually to get up and continue to do the things you need to do. Keep analyzing data year after year to catch any gaps that you see. So don't move up, just keep at stuff and keep diagnosing what's happening and things like that. One of the things that we didn't see in our data dashboard is the other stuff, all the things that we do. Social studies, science, the arts, music, STEM, that's absent from that dashboard. And how do you bring that into a strategic plan and highlight that under academic excellence was a good question that we had too as well. So, and then really targeting meeting proficiency and meeting the growth. The stretch goal, you know, do we have a specific group of kids who are meeting that or not meeting that? Continue to take a look and see what your data tells you year after year.
Awesome.
That's pretty much what we do. And Ashley, I did see that you were really trying to hone in on that. I didn't know it was going on a board. These were my own personal notes, so.
I'm not picking on you, Ron, I promise.
And I think, you know, we can all agree that this group has a good thing.
Are we gonna rank that?
I was gonna say compared.
All right, I'm giving you an index card, and just, I'm looking for you to just write down, and I'm gonna collect these anonymously. What is something that you think, based on tonight's activity that we just did, the plan really needs to address? What is, you know, 1 or 2 things that you would say, based on this data that we looked at tonight, you are very much an apt proponent that this should be something in the plan, right? That's all, I'm gonna keep it that generic. Something should be in the plan.
Sorry, how many did you say?
2, no more than 2.
So, oh, it's 36?
And while you're writing, I just want to compliment you. You captured a lot of ideas. That was a great discussion, fast and good. So I'm a person that loves metaphors and pictures. So I want for you to shut your eyes for a moment as you finish writing, and I want for you to think about driving a car or a motorcycle or whatever you like to drive. And I want for you to think about, how do you look at what's going on behind you? Those side mirrors, the rear view mirror, those mirrors that give you a sense of looking backwards, right? And they're small, but they're really important, and there's 3 of them, right? You've got the big rear view mirror on the windshield, and you've got the 2 side mirrors that are showing you what's going on behind you, right? And that's kind of what we've done tonight, is we've looked at all sorts of data that in many ways is behind us. But now, think about it, shut your eyes and think about how big is that windshield of what's in front of you. It's huge. The windshield is so much larger than any of those other little mirrors. And that's what we're thinking about as we think about the future. And so we're just gonna segue to think about the future for kids now. Not just, no strategic plan should just look at, all of what's been, but gosh, what about these kids that are gonna graduate in 2039? And so there's 2 articles that you have, and this is just to get us percolating and thinking. Again, no right answers, but again, a good opportunity to look and meet with some other people. And Group A, you're gonna meet over here. Group B, over there. Group C, and Group D, right? And I don't think we've got 10 minutes, but we've probably got about 8, which is a good amount of time, 15 minutes for these articles. And you have articles in front of you, and you also have just a short sheet that says, no, I put them at the table. They're at the table. They're all there. And there's a sheet that says, what does this article make you think the teaching and learning pillar should include? What are things that we need to be aware of regarding the teaching and learning pillar when we read an article like this? Or what about a staff pillar? Or what about how do we help parents understand this information and community? I mean, just what does it make you think of as you think about these articles? So here are the directions. I tend to be a terrible direction giver, so I'm going to do it fast and see if you have questions. These are the groups. Group A is over there, B, C, and D. Take a look at the articles, and on the sheet, get a note taker and just write down some ideas. What does this tell you that we might need to consider in the plan? You might say, wow, double down on STEM, right? I mean, just keep going on that. What does that look like for the next 5 years, or whatever? Is that what you were thinking? Oh, no.
Exactly.
I don't know what you'll think of, but what does that look like? So let's go. We're going to take 15 minutes for this activity. Maybe 14 minutes, but get to your tables and then just start talking about it. I've got some extra articles too. Someone needs to note tape, and I will collect the notes.
I think this is B.
Oh.
If you want to join us, you certainly can.
That's okay.
A, B, C.
It blew my mind. It's kind of like what our parents must have been like reading 1980 or whatever
I
that
also think that
book
whatever you
was,
put
when
on
you
one
looked into
kind
the
of works.
future.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it needs to be.
My son's uncle was very successful.
No, no.
I brought mine.
I bought my own too.
Okay, yeah, we're good, thank you.
He's a junior, and so they asked him, like, what do you want to go to college for? And they said, but don't think about like what you want to do in 5 or 6 years. You need to think about what the market's going to need 15 years from now, and how you're going to fit in there. So I read these, and I'm like,
Tech, tech, tech.
you were right. I mean, yeah.
I think,
But I have read.
like, I wonder how this, the 2031, this was written pre-AI. And I feel like AI has changed so many things in the last 6 months, year, that I wonder how the jobs of 2030 look different now, post-AI versus when this was written, which was before AI, because I think it's really changed a lot as far as what kids looking to learn and all the skills.
What do they need a strong base?
It's all very tech heavy, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
which isn't a surprise.
Trying to find it, but I like where it said, it's not the strongest that's gonna survive, it's the most adaptive, yeah. That makes a lot, I mean, that's accurate.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't matter how strong you are. Darwinism. You need to be able to roll with the punches.
So I could say that, yes.
So that was a big,
Even just some of these, cybersecurity and misinformation emails. So like, it just blows my mind that they think that that's going to be one of the biggest.
well, yeah, I mean, it's how do you tell the difference between real and fake too, then, when you got AI telling you what to do with it. How do you determine what's accurate and not accurate, or real and not? I mean, now today too, you know, it's hard to tell sometimes what's a scam.
My mom's constantly asking me, do I need to worry about this one? Because it comes from Amazon, you know? Amazon, I need to worry about it. No, you don't, Mom.
Ignore it.
Ignore it.
Yep, Mike calls me all the time too. Is this real? Probably not. This I thought was interesting. Healthcare professionals, did you read that? Longevity becomes a top concern for the ultra wealthy.
Yep.
As the average age of those with over 10 million in earnings skyrockets to 130 years.
So my son started out being a biomolecular engineer. That's what he started. So he got into a lot of this, DNA, and that you can take a 3D sculpture. You can sculpture a framework of a liver, and then you can put DNA around it, and you can make it grow right there. And we got into all these discussions about, okay, where's that line if you're playing God? And what's, so we got into this, like, you can literally, it's like having a car. You can replace all the parts inside. Can you replace the brain? Can you replace, at what point can you,
Yeah.
Is he still in it?
No, he decided that physics was not his thing. So he is now in user experience, which plays into a lot of this too, because it,
Mathematical fluency will allow you to break through a barrier. Because you can't get to a certain point. You can't go with 5%. You are never going to be able to create an
But he's already like,
that
he's 7 years old.
scientific is about the inverse function of
So he's expected to live until like 106.
How is, like infusing it, or
Yeah, how do you do it?
I read it quickly.
Yeah.
And I guess it don't make sense to you, it probably makes sense to your son.
Yeah, probably.
probably does.
But yeah, and I've seen his picture pop up more since I read that article.
Wow. That's crazy.
My first one was, why you doing that?
But then it goes to your point, like they can build me in the liver, they can build me in the heart.
Yeah.
I agree though.
It's hard to comprehend that we're
It is.
only here for X amount of years.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it is.
Yeah.
But it's just,
That's what it is.
it's funny we're scared of other things than, it's just weird. I don't know. We get picked up with the
So what does this article make you think the teaching and learning pillars should include?
Tech, STEM. But there's still tech in many areas. People will still need to have people skills and soft skills. That will not, it may reduce.
I'm not saying don't
I think those are
Personal
the main
skills are
pillars
still so
of
important.
tech and stuff would still be here. So that's basically AI feels like it's coming out. That's what's holding.
Yeah, that's the foundation of it, really. I think this is always, like, as a parent and just a person who works with kids, just the difference in kids since they're so young to social media, all of things, and the change in how they speak to minors, speak to adults, speak to kids, how they are just different in the way that they interact.
You think
It's
it's
sad and alarming.
more disrespectful or
It's like, it's disrespectful, it's that they just don't have the skills like they used to. I don't, it's even hard to see if it's disrespectful, they can be disrespectful,
well,
but like,
I'm just taking,
if they're not being taught appropriate social skills, like, you're not typing right now, you were talking to someone. Like, that is alarming.
And I think that kind of goes into this, because we're focusing so much on the tech. It's like, when you look at this, I mean, they have to do critical thinking, collaborative ability, communication, resilience, self-regulation. How many kids get on that machine and can't self-regulate themselves? Not just emotionally, but just being able to do that. Self-awareness, understanding that there's someone else besides you. Leadership, motivation, empathy. I mean, you think of all of those things, and I think we're getting so into tech, and so our kids are into tech, that we're losing all of that soft skills right now.
Already.
I think that's accurate, for sure, 100%.
You know, it's interesting, I never thought of that. I spent 4 hours in a district today prior to coming here, where they just, not using this article, but the big 3 things they were focusing on were problem solving, collaboration, and communication and argument or persuasion, or, you know, I mean, that idea of respectful discourse. Were the 3 that they were putting their money down on. So it's interesting, I never thought about self-regulation, but that's a really good one, and I never thought about it in here.
Because like even my job is, I can't go in your room and turn the heat on without my computer. Like I have to go on the computer to do it, or, you know, physically strip a wire and jump it to give it power to tell it to turn the heat on, but I mean, I'm forced to use the computer. I gotta bring it on the roof in the snow and to try to get a unit to run to see what's wrong with it. You know, it's crazy how we're
I mean, think about
doing that to ourselves.
Totally, and think about in schools, like, I work in Swallow, and through the days when there's no Wi-Fi, like, the network is down. People freak out.
They don't know how to function.
And it's like, and I'm very old school, but I'm like, like, we're doing right. Like, it's like, it sends so many people to like Alarmville that it's like, oh my gosh. It does, but it shouldn't, you know.
It's funny too.
Yes.
Yeah, I put a home standby generator in the house. So we have power, but Spectrum doesn't have power. On the pole, we don't have intermittent power. It's like, well, now what do? We can't even get TV, or like, we can't, what do we do now? We can't see.
But you have water, you can flush the toilet, which is.
Yeah, I know, that's just about it. It's like, this is sad. Like when that happens, I mean, this is just like, it's ridiculous.
Thankfully, it doesn't happen, and when it does, it's always such a reality check.
It is.
This is how we live right now.
Smart home, smart switches, you can't turn the light on without talking. Well, you don't have internet, so it won't turn on. It's everything you do now.
So you talk about that cyber, you were talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where World War III is gonna come, right? Cyber attack? I mean,
there's been some.
You knock out our cyber system and everything goes.
I don't even know. Yeah, that's what the whole conversation. Right. How the internet even works, or how is it one thing? How do you not one, how can you, you know?
To knock out.
Because like, you know, power, so obviously there's different power plants and distribution and this and that, but the internet is what, where's it coming from, or where's it, I mean, there's servers, but are they just, I know, but that's a server somewhere, and some, and some kids'
All right, in
parents.
2 minutes, you're going to tell us a nugget from your
What idea does it
conversation.
raise for staff
In
members?
2 minutes, you're gonna tell us an important nugget of your conversation, and you're gonna have your sheet ready to give.
So that kind of is going to,
With a staff pillar.
That's a
Like
tough
that-
one.
As a staff.
as of even having staff?
Yeah, I guess.
No,
I don't know
Or
how to
like,
answer that.
because you could, you know, are they thinking of replacing it with
I think we've learned from COVID that that doesn't work really well.
Yeah, not in our family anyway. Our kids struggle.
But I think teachers have to keep up with this. I think you have to do a lot of staff development. I mean, I was joking with Steve, because they were talking about doing all these new programs, like, you have to teach teachers and stuff too.
If we're talking only the next 5 years, there's strategic planning, I would say that.
No, I think, no, you know, what are the struggles?
If we're thinking more than 5,
How do
then
you
it's,
begin to, because media
Talking.
literacy, where does that fall into?
what are the, you know, how do the staff implement?
Or is it process?
You just think about how fast kids pick up this technology because they're growing up with it. It's harder for us as adults to learn it.
And it changes so fast, so fast.
Ideas for other pillars in the strategic plan.
This is a place I can definition.
I think,
Where's the pillar sheet?
I think with it, with communication, I mean, you really, really need to communicate with your parents too, so that they understand. So, I mean, have they read something like this, do they understand what we're coming, so there really has to be a good.
There's so much to it.
I think it's
It's hard
important.
to, no, go
No,
ahead.
go, you can finish.
I was gonna say. 'cause
All right,
even
let's
like
listen
with
for
staff
alignment.
development,
Let's
even
do a quick
people
listen.
To the
How about
kids,
if we
what's going on
start-
in the world. The staff has to understand it, which is staff development.
How about if we start over here?
You can't
What's a
teach
nugget of
something
your
you don't know.
conversation? Let's see if you talked about the same thing.
It's a learning curve for everyone.
Everyone?
I didn't.
I know you could keep talking. So what was something you conversed about that might be in the plan based on these articles? What's something you talked about? I'm still gonna collect your sheets, but what's something you talked about?
Focusing more on STEM and technology is
STEM and
number one for
technology?
the number one pillar we came up with
Okay,
for teaching and learning.
all right. What about over
But at
here?
the same time,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't lose those soft skills, because
No.
they are just as important.
Yeah,
Explain soft skills, Dave.
We said
Empathy, communication.
adaptability, flexibility, social skills, self-regulation, ability to cut off the computer and talk to people, those types of things. Look at me.
yeah, so I see a couple things there. You know, we gotta have the building blocks, right? I mean, we gotta have good foundational skills. We wanna focus on some technology and comfort level with that, and then those, you know, you call them soft skills, whatever we call them, success skills. I was saying, I left a district that they doubled down on 3 of them today. And they said, these are the 3 we're gonna go hard on: problem solving, communication and discourse, and collaboration. They were gonna work on those 3, and those were the 3 they picked. Not that you need to do that, but that's where they went today, not with these articles, that was just what they focused on. What about over here, what
I
did you talk
feel
about?
like this is just
We
kind of
focused in
and I
on,
think
you know, the need
that
for, to avoid focusing so much on the tools and the changes, but focusing more on the fundamental skills, you know, not too far from soft skills, but just critical thinking, taking, information from trusted sources, and being thoughtful with how they engage with the content.
Thank you. I heard that over here. What did you talk about?
So we started with those softer pieces of like, we need our kids to be good critical thinkers and evolving problem solvers, but really got into like, how do you become that? You have some kind of media literacy, and in media literacy, you know, like, how to dig into a source, where do you go to find trusted information, how do you build an argument, what is artificial intelligence good for, and when do we leave it behind? Like, it has a use and a time and a place, but where is that? And using that as that foundational block, that our kids need that, and from that, they will be able to creatively think and problem solve, because they'll know where to get information to do that.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. And what did you talk about?
I think a lot of those, whatever you call them, soft skills, 21st century skills, you know, we did talk about those, like creativity, is probably something we need to add on, with collaboration, self-directed learners, type of thing. I'm trying to think of something new, because a lot of the things.
It's okay, it doesn't have to be. I mean, that's what we're trying to find, are those alignment pieces.
We're gonna have to support staff in consistently learning new things. Technology, the skills go way fast, the kids learn faster. We have to be able to support teachers and faculty in consistently learning and teaching the kids that they're always going to have to be learning. You know, there's not you don't get a skill set, you're done.
challenges, I know, talents.
Thanks for the good discussion on that. Come back in.
Yeah, and it changes for families and individuals, and yeah, it's hard to do this.
I will, yes. Thank you. 1.
It's all different, so it's, you know,
Yeah.
there's a big one, there. Yeah, there's 20 articles, no.
Yeah, we gotta get them back up.
Oh, these
I'll
ones?
pick them up, you don't have to worry about it.
All right.
All right, so just some next steps and then a quick summary. Our next meeting will be held Thursday, January 25th, 6 p.m., same place. And you'll have the agenda and preparation materials by January 18th, at least 1 week in advance. We'll try to get them out to you sooner. I'll get the minutes out from this meeting sooner. And again, with the minutes, start thinking about what's percolating, right? What's starting to seem like it's bubbling up a little bit. At the next meeting, you will have all the data from the listening sessions, which again is only one piece of information, but a big piece of information. And then we will also have a draft and review and finalize the survey. And I need to put this out there so that you understand. That's not something we'll ever all agree on, so we have to just kind of go, right? I mean, we're not gonna have a consensus of 15 people on it. We're gonna try and do our very best, and if you feel we're missing some areas, we'll try to get those out in advance too, so that you can take a look at it. But those are the two big deliverables for the next time. Listening session, key themes, and survey, so that you know what's going on and can advocate for people to take that. Let's just do this, a quick whip around. What's something that went well tonight, or items discussed that should be celebrated? And if you want to, something that we might do differently next time.
I think we're all in agreement on a lot of topics. I think that's good that the group is agreeing on where we need to move forward on, and where we don't need to.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, the small group discussion on that works well.
Good. Good. What else? What else is working well, or something that you're feeling good about, or a celebration?
I like that you changed your groups around a lot, so you get to hear different people and have this group discussions.
Good. That's intentional.
I appreciated the timeliness, even though I didn't understand what I got necessarily. I'm sorry, Brian, for the set of emails today. The preparation material was well laid out.
Good, good.
I think everyone did a fantastic job being engaged, like
I
the
do
amount
too.
of questions from every group.
Can I just tell you, it's really nice to work with an engaged group. Brian and I were saying this is really enjoyable for us, so thank you for calling that out, because I would as well. Anything else?
I think the honesty is good too. I mean, I think we've had some critical, we'll continue to have critical conversations and because everybody wants to move forward, and, we've got stakeholders in here that maybe, not everything looks great in a survey, but everybody's willing to step up and just say, what can we continue to do better? And nobody's in here hanging their head or anything like that either. So I think there's a lot to be said about that too.
And thank you for that. And I always like to say, whenever we talk about those critical issues, this is about creating systems and processes. So what can leaders do to engage? This isn't about a person. This is about how do we build a process and a system for that to be done more intentionally and systematically. Anything else? I'm very appreciative, as is Brian, of your time tonight. Thank you very much. Drive home safely, and we will see you on the 25th of January.